Y'all want me to reach the top of this tower in one step, but look at all these ropes. It's gonna be impossible not to touch any. They're like lasers. That's why I'm calling this level 10, and we're gonna go all the way down to level 1 and work our way up to it. Level 1 was really chill. I put my knee right there, put my other knee right there. It was time to take my one step, so I took it, and then I got to the top of that tower, and level 1 is complete. Moving on to level 2, which you might recognize because if you've been watching my shorts, you know I got to the top of this tower in 1 trillion steps, but today is just one step. I'm using a lot of my knees. I take my one step right there, and then I get up in this tower. Remember, to get into the tower, I can't take a step. The step has to happen before I reach the tower, and now it's level 3. This one was a little bit more tricky. Even though the top of the tower is right in front of me, I had to get up this rock wall, and it was killing my knees. My knees were like really hurting, and I took my first step a little too early, because as you can see, it was still pretty low down, so I had to keep using my knees to get to the top there, and it was really awkward getting under this thing, but I got there in the end, and now it's time for level 4, which is one of the first parks we ever filmed at for this channel, so you also might recognize it. Now, my first step doesn't really count until I actually get onto the playground. So there we go. I'm officially on it. So now I officially have one step. I actually overthought this one by a lot. I thought it was gonna be really hard because I wasn't sure how I was gonna get through these rings without taking more than one step. But that's when I realized I'm about 6 foot. Okay, I'm about 6 foot. All that means is I can actually get through this ring, then use my one step right there, and then actually hoist myself up, stand up all the way on that 1 foot, put my other 2 arms above, and then hoist myself up and get to the top just like that. And now it's time for level 5, which might look really easy, and you might think, well, that looks easier than level 4, but it's not, because I have to get all the way across, and I had to start out on this metal thing, which absolutely destroys my knees. By the end of the day, my knees actually might need surgery, because this has been so painful for them, and I took my first step right there, and I think that was a mistake. It was way too early, so I had to go ahead and lay down and start doing the scoots, which are never that fun, because it's really easy to let your feet accidentally hit the ground, and remember, I only take one step, so I gotta be careful. This part got super painful. I literally had to fall down the stairs. My tailbone hurt so bad, but in the end, I made it there, and it is now time for level 6. Level 6 is actually really good practice for level 10, because there's a net about halfway through this challenge to get to the other tower, which is gonna make it a little bit like level 10. Once again, putting so much strain on my poor knees. Right here, I was so thankful for these little bitty divots, allow me to put my knees into them, allow me to get up that ramp, because without them, my knees would have slid back down. But here's where things get really hard, because now I'm at the net, and I cannot let more than 1 footstep take place here, or else I fail. I had to be really careful about when to take it, because if I take it too soon, that means I'm gonna have to roll across the rest of this net. So I kind of want to make sure my first step takes place in the center of the net. So I start out on my knees, get across, take my first step right in the middle, everything's going to plan. Then I put my knee about right before I get to that tower, allow me to get my other knee on the tower and make it, meaning we're moving on to level 7. Level 7 is one of the longest parks, and it also has some of the most floaty things. I don't know what else to call them. I'll call these floating mushrooms, and then I'll call the rings the floating rings of death, because they were super difficult. The mushrooms actually weren't that bad on my knees, which was kind of nice. The only difficult part was this part where they're connected to chains, so they're floating and moving a lot. So I had to lock in and make sure that my placement was really good, because if it wasn't good, I'd fall off and it was gonna hurt really bad. And this is where I decided to take my first step, which overall I think was pretty good placement. It's about the halfway point, and I didn't really need to step in these rings, because technically you have to crawl through these anyway. So I just gotta be careful that the bottom of my foot doesn't touch anything, and just make sure I keep on crawling and get through the rings, and it was really, really hard. And not gonna lie, I thought I was gonna fall out a bunch of times, because when you're floating, there's like a foot of distance between each ring, so you could easily fall, but I didn't. I got it, and now we're moving on to level 8. Okay, not gonna lie, level 8 could have been level 10. It was actually a lot harder than I thought it was gonna be, and in hindsight, I probably should have made it level 9, I'm not sure. Because that little bitty first thing I started on, that pole, actually rocked back and forth, so I had to keep my balance on it really well, and this part was super hard. Transitioning onto this without taking a step was almost impossible. But I managed to get my knees onto it, and remember, I can use my ankles, I just can't use the bottom of my feet, because that counts as a step, and I only have 1 step. So right there, I got my ankle across, which I did the splits, and that really, really hurt. But we got across there in the end, and now I had to transition onto this green wall, which was also going to be really, really painful and really, really troublesome. So I used the ankle technique and locked both ankles over that little lip, allowing me to slide right on. I almost actually slid right over it. It got really close, but luckily I kept my grip and I stayed on. Then I decided to transition onto my knees, because it was a little bit easier than scooting on my legs how I had been, and allowed me to get across pretty quick. The transition from the green wall to the monkey bars was also a little troublesome, because I had to be really careful here, and I really needed a breather because I was getting really tired, and these monkey bars were going to be really hard. So I sat here for a couple minutes taking in the time, and I was like, you know what? I've come this far. far. I cannot fail. Let's just take it in, breathe a little bit, and wait. And now let's get on to these monkey bars. I had no idea how close I was to failing here. Look at the bottom of my feet. Do you see how they're floating above the ground inches away? Well, anywho, I took my first step right there, made it onto the tower, and now I had no steps left and I had to get to the top of that tower. So just like level 3, I had to do the butt scoots to get up there and pull myself up and make sure the bottom of my feet did not touch, and they got really close to touching a few times, but you know, these things happen. So that was the first flight of stairs done, but then I decided to do a different technique to get to the top, but then I realized a family was coming, so I had to really hurry up to get to the top here, and this new technique was way worse and it was really hard, but in the end we got there, and now it was time to move on to level 9. This one's actually right across from level 7, but it's like its really difficult brother, because it's a lot harder to get across, mainly because of this green tongue right here, and later this big fidget spinner. Started pretty strong on the mushrooms, those are always easy, but then things got hard really fast, because I had to get over this tongue thing, and getting up's not the hard part, it's getting down, because momentum could carry me right off onto the ground, so I had to descend really carefully here, and then things went from bad to worse, because right here it was broken, so if I put my knee on that rope, it could fall right off, and I lose everything. But I had no choice, I had to test it out, so I put my knee right on there, and thank goodness the tension kept it on. I didn't fall. That was a big win. I was like, thank goodness, but I ended up messing up later on, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Right now, we got to get across this fidget spinner, which tell me in the comments if you think it looks like a fidget spinner, because I think it does. It looks like 3 of them stacked together. It doesn't actually move. It kind of just wobbles, but it's really hard to get over without taking steps, and I got really close, as you can see. But I ended up getting right over it by putting my knees and my legs above the little fidget spinner pieces, and that allowed me to get to the top, and then I had to transition down onto this rope, and I took my first step right there. But I messed up big time because it was my left foot, not my right, meaning it was a lot harder to transition over, and I had to end up falling down onto my knees, which hurt so bad. It didn't look that bad, but trust me, the pain was horrible, and then the ladder made things really difficult, but I figured out if I could hook my leg around it, it made it a little bit more easy to get to the very top. And then, just like level 3, and then the level before, I had to do the good old butt scoots to get to the top, keep my heels up, make sure I didn't take any more steps, and then we got the win, and now, guys, it's time for level 10. I've been practicing all day to make this one happen. I've gotten to the top of every other tower on the other 9 playgrounds in one step, and today, it's ending here at level 10. Can I make it to the top in just one step? I cannot fail, y'all. I've made it this far. We're a family here. Y'all are a wonderful, wonderful group of subscribers. I couldn't ask for anyone better. You guys are so awesome. I love doing these challenges that y'all tell me to do, and I think we're off to a good start here. I was able to use my knees pretty well here, and then loop my ankles around other ropes, and then pull myself up. Just like here, I put my little knee right there, put my other foot down there. It looks like I'm stepping, but I'm not. And then I was able to push up, get up here, put my knees right here, and here's where things get tricky. You see, all of these ropes are almost like lasers, you know, from the movies, and I had to make sure the bottom of my foot didn't touch any of them, so I had to actually pick up my foot and put it over the ropes just to make sure they didn't touch. I had to be that precise and that surgical about this, because if I'm not, I'll fail. But here we are at the halfway point. As you can see, I'm picking up my feet once again, being really, really careful, pushing myself up. This tower takes a ton of upper body strength. Because I can't push up on my feet, I have to pull myself up. Then again, I can push myself up a little bit on my knees, but overall, I couldn't use my knees that much because it was super painful. But luckily, there was this little bitty leather thing in the middle, allowing me to take a little bitty rest for my poor knees. But I was in the end game. I had to lock in. I pulled myself up, got myself right there, looked around to make sure I understood where all the ropes were, so I didn't actually use a step, because I gotta save my final step for the very top, because without it, I can't actually reach it. So I used my knees right here. I gotta go to the hospital because, guys, my knees are toast. I'm dead from today. But then I used my one step right here, the final step for the day, stood up, was able to touch the top of the tower, and we won. We got to the top of level 10 and all the other levels. Subscribe if you love your mom.